Alright guys, welcome back to New World Carpentry Solutions, and in this video we're actually going to start the sharpening process for all these chisels. At this point they all been sanded up to I believe 220 grit, which if you guys caught the end of the other video, is sharp enough to kind of chop a mortise and some softwood, but it's not as sharp as you really want it to be. Like none of these knives are at the point where they can shave hair yet. Piece of paper. Let's see if they can cut paper. Yeah, they're not. They can slice paper. So if I do a slicing motion, they'll cut. If I put it back in that curve, it'll kind of cut it. That's not as sharp as we really want our chisels. We want them, yeah, we want them sharper than that. So we're at the point where we can cut wood, but can't shear and shave paper. So how do we get it there? Pretty much we have to take it up past, I would say anywhere past like 1,000 grit. Once you get to like, 600 to 1,000, you can probably stop at 800 grit and you'll probably have a sharp enough chisel that, you can shave hairs, you can get it to slide through paper. Another thing you can do is add a micro bevel. I might do that to some of these chisels. It makes it easier to maintain, so we'll probably get to that. But right now we're gonna start off with 400 grit, which will be the next grit in our cycle. And the next thing we need to do is actually get our stones wet so we can start the sanding process. And my uncle just pulled up, so I'm gonna pause the video. Well, actually, I'm gonna keep it rolling. He might say something funny, we'll see. So the first thing we're gonna do is probably continue on with the plane iron that we started on. And to get it going, we're gonna take a little bit of water. I don't have a spray bottle, which would make this a lot easier, but a pump sprayer that I can kind of just leave here on the side works just as fine. We're just gonna get a little bit of water on the stone. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the plane iron, and when you make first contact, you don't want to drop tip first. You want to actually rest it on the stone. Then take your hands and apply pressure to get it flat. And then you're going to work it back and forth. You can do a figure 8 pattern. If I had a larger stone, I would say that'd be better. But in this case, simple back and forth strokes like that will probably be the best motion. And again, I'm not trying to sharpen the whole iron. I just want to get, realistically, I could do another trick, which some people, I think it's called the ruler trick, by putting a small piece of metal, pretty much shimming it up. You can actually focus the edge right here on the tip. That only works for planing irons because of how they cut. For chisels, I wouldn't recommend doing anything to change your angle on the back side of the blade. But again, in this case, I've gotten it fairly flat. The scratch marks are almost coming all the way to the tip, so I'm just going to continue on with this. There still is a hollow spot right here, but again, as I continue to sharpen it, this plane iron, I'll slowly have to work my way through that. I could continue a little bit more, just to. We're gonna hit this side as well, just to keep it even, and then I might polish up the top side of it. This side doesn't really matter. I just want to get most of the rust off of the plane iron, but this side doesn't really do any of the cutting action. It's really, what makes something sharp is when two different planes intersect each other. So this flat back and then this angle here where they intersect has to be razor thin, and that's how you get a sharp edge. So this portion up here doesn't do anything because this one has a chip breaker. This part ends up being the chip breaker that's just right there on top. So after this makes the cut, it curls up and then this kicks it off. So there's no real need to polish up this side, except for if I just wanted to look really nice. Maybe I'll feel like coming back and doing this another day. But right now, I just want to get all my tools cutting. So I'm going to keep hitting this side with the 400 grit, and then I will go ahead and progress through the process. You guys will need to see me sharpen every single chisel here. Well, I'll do one chisel. I'm gonna finish this plane iron at 400 grit, and then I'm gonna do one chisel at 400 grit. Then I'll flip the stone, and we'll continue on going up with the higher grits. That's definitely getting there. All right, let's do one chisel. And then we'll flip the stone over. Let's do this 3/4 inch chisel. Add a little bit more water. So on this chisel, if I can get that to focus, back it up maybe. So with it focused, you guys can see right here how it's less polished here, and then all down here. You have the areas that are super shiny, then the areas that aren't being hit. This part, I didn't really come that far down the chisel, but right here in this area, that tells me that there's a convex where the chisel is hollower. But again, the thing that we were working on and we're trying to get is it completely polished across the edge. I want my scratch marks to run all the way to the very tip. That lets me know that it's hitting that whole edge. That means from here forward, it's perfectly flat. Here is a slight belly, but again, when I'm running my chisel into material, this is flat enough. I mean, it's perfectly fine. I'm not gonna try to shave off all that material. As my chisel gets shorter, I'll worry about flattening this area as you know, I keep working the metal down. But for right now, this is flat enough. So the next thing I need to do is work on my bevel. And those scratch marks are running all the way across the face. The one thing that you can do is add a micro bevel, which because I don't have a jig for that, that is one tip I would say. If you're gonna try to freehand sharpen chisels and stuff like that, I don't feel confident enough to add a micro bevel because this, I can find this angle kind of by feel, by resting it onto the stone. But trying to create a new angle, then keep at that same angle so you can create a new point here, a little too much for me. I might end up making a sharpening jig just so I can add a micro bevel. Do everything else by hand until I get to the micro bevel portion. Essentially, the only thing the micro bevel is doing though is slicing off another angle right here at the tip, and what that's going to allow you to do is pretty much sharpen less material. Every time the chisel gets dull, you're just resharpening the micro bevel versus having to re-flatten and sharpen all of this. And some people say chop's better because it can get to a finer point. But from my understanding, actually let me not say that for certain, that's just my understanding of why people add micro bevels to chisels. It makes the subsequent resharpenings easier, and I believe you can get a better edge on it. Not sure. But yeah, that's my understanding on it. But at this point, we have the chisel and this plane iron sharpened up to 400 grit. So now what we're going to do is flip this stone over, and this is at 600 grit. A little bit of water. Right now, I can tell by feel, I have a burr on this edge, but not a burr all the way across yet. So you want to keep sharpening until you have a burr that runs the full distance all the way across. And a burr, you'll kind of feel it. It's like the metal that's been rolled up at the edge. It kind of makes like a hook feel. So as you run your finger off the back of the blade, you'll be able to feel the burr. And right about here in the middle over to here, I don't have a burr yet. All right. That's starting to look like a planer knife. Now we're going to do the same for the chisel. And then we want to switch back to sandpaper because I don't have 1,000 grit stones. I have 1,000 grit sandpaper. I mean 1,500 grit sandpaper and 3,000 grit sandpaper. And that will be how I finish off these chisels and planer knives. The length for the chisel on a straight push through test would be a lot more for it to do. Again, getting there. Let's go through 2 more grits. And let's see how she does. A hand tool bench, and then I'm also going to be doing a drill press cart, a mobile base for the bandsaw, and then a build for the radial arm saw. I got a switch for it, but it won't work unless I reroute the power. A whole bunch of other fun stuff. So after this little chisel situation here, I'm probably going to show you guys how to build some drawers for the drill press. We're probably going to set up to build the hand tool bench and then the mobile base for the bandsaw. We'll probably switch over and do cushions for the seats up front. And then the shop will, well, then we'll probably hang plywood and stuff, but I might not film any of that. That's pretty simple. But once the plywood's up, we can then do the lights because all the power and everything else is ran. So then I can give you guys a full shop update / tour. Because by then, yeah, everything should be in here. Fingers crossed. Everything minus the future CNC and 3D printer I would like to get. This one is 3,000 grit. And again, some people go 6, 7, 8,000, you know, go to like ridiculously high grits. That's not what we're doing here. This will actually be my first, well, I tried to sharpen chisels maybe 3 times in my life. Well, 3 real attempts where I sat down and went through grits. But again, I'm using stuff that I have on hand. I've had, you know, 3,000 grit sandpaper for a little bit. And I was looking through all my drawers and found all of my rusty chisels and figured, hey, I've been woodworking for a little bit. Let's see if I can use those skills and see if they can translate into sharpening my hand tools. Before I build this hand tool bench, let me see if I can do the basics for maintaining. I probably will be buying a jig or making one. Might just make a jig that can set the plane angle. Set the angles for the chisels. And then buy a set of either diamond stones or glass. And then you can do the same glue and stick technique with your sandpaper. But you know they'll stay flat. These pieces of wood, after getting wet like this, probably won't stay the same dimensions in the next, a month or so. They might swell up a little bit. They might get a cup or a bow in there. So something like a piece of glass or tile makes another really good substrate. Again, I'm not the best sharpener, but that cut is still cleaner than that cut. So I will say, for my rusty old Stanley block plane, where the base and the sole and everything else was rusted, I think I will take that, and let's see if I can even get this to cut. I think that's about what I would expect from a cheap block plane. Yeah, that's pretty darn smooth. Let me get her set up right so that blade's still a little shallow. There we go. Yeah, that's good. That's good for a little block plane for me. All right, so I'm gonna go through that same process that you guys saw me go through for the rest of, the rest of these chisels. I'm actually gonna turn some TV on in the background, And I might record all of it, I might not. Let me draw that back up in there so she doesn't get dinged. And on the job site, I don't typically use a black plane. Can't really think of too many shop instances where I'll use one either. But it's good to know that I have one and that is sharp. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed the process, please let me know down in the comments. Leave me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.